All About Writing with Ben and Sara.
Welcome to All About Writing, the podcast that covers everything about the world of writing from the inside out. This is episode 69, part 12 on our series on writing craft. I'm Sara, here with my co-host Ben, who is an award-winning, best-selling author and ghostwriter, editor, and publisher.
And I'm Ben, here with my co-host Sara, who is an award-winning, best-selling author, screenwriter, editor, and TED Talk presenter. And today, we're talking about tropes. What a funny word, trope. What is a trope? So, in case you've never heard of a trope, it's a, how would you define a trope, Sara?
To me, a trope is, and this is, I think the easiest to describe them is in like the romance genre, but like a trope is something that has an expected pattern in the book. So you'll hear this like enemies to lovers is a trope. You'll hear it best friends to lovers is a trope. I know there's tropes within fantasy and sci-fi, which I know you can speak to, right? But like in historical fiction, which I write, there's a lot of the spunky heroine is a trope, and a very common trope actually in historical fiction, oftentimes. And so the tropes are these expected little tweaks or pairings that create a pattern within a book that your readers are going to be expecting if they are walking in being told it is an enemies to lovers book or a forbidden romance book.
So in sci-fi, some tropes would be like the hive mind alien, who is very impersonal and is coming to destroy without thought, or the adventurer going to a new world, and having to defeat the environment of the new world. It's things that are well-established ideas that anybody can use. And when a reader comes across this, they go, okay, I know what this is. I know where this is going. Cool. Entertain me with this trope. So, yeah.
But I also want to say, like, a trope is different than themes. So the hero's journey is a theme that you can put within a trope. So like you're just talking about how a trope in sci-fi is, the explorer going to a new world and they have to battle things, right? Within that trope is the hero's journey and their emotional arc or change and stuff like that. So the tropes are not themes. I think I wanted to make that distinction. They kind of bleed together, but they are very different and can be happening simultaneously.
Yeah, like the hero's journey is the survival on this planet, whereas the trope would be the spaceship crash landing and having to save the ship and figure out what you can use on this planet. So it's a very specific thing, which you can use in many different ways. The idea of the hive mind alien is another one where you can dress that up however you like, and the plot can be all kinds of things, but the hive mind alien is just sort of we've seen this before. I get what you're doing, author. Okay, hive mind alien, gotcha. And there's certain expectations that come with that. And I think that's a key with a trope too, is that you are setting expectations for the reader.
Yes. And the expectations are also specific per the genre, and I'm going to use the romance genre again because it is such a clear one. But when you sell a book that this is the enemies to lovers trope, you can't change it in the middle and turn it into something else, because your readers in that genre are expecting that trope. They do not want you to change that trope. If you do, they will not be happy with you. Versus other genres will allow you to tweak, or you've mentioned, subvert the trope.
Yeah. And this is really important to think about, because we're told as writers okay, you've got to be original. You've got to do something different. What makes you different from every other book in this genre? Well, there's lots of things that make you different. Your writing style, the individual characters that you've made, the way that you approach certain scenes. Like there's lots of things that are individual, but that doesn't mean you can't have tropes in your writing, because every genre has its tropes that are just long established just because people like them. And what I would recommend to any author who wants to be different, great, you can be different, but you still need to understand what the tropes are in your fiction or in your genre. Because if you want to turn them on their head, if you want to subvert them, you still need to understand what they are. And so you specifically are subverting them to make a point, to be different. Great. You can surprise a reader that way, but you have to set it up so they think it's going to be one thing, and oh, I'm turning it on its head here, it's going to be this. But you're still using a trope, you're just subverting it.
How do you, with that advice, and you as a publisher, I think you understand this process better than most in making sure that it all makes sense and lines up, whether you're using the trope throughout or you are subverting it. Where do you, like, what do you tell people to do? Like, do they research it? Do they read both subversions and traditional, what people have done in the past so they know? Like, how do you make sure that how do you understand a trope?
Yeah. You definitely need to read extensively in the genre that you're writing in, just to pick up on the usual things that authors will go for. Like fantasy is another great one. Like the classic Tolkien elf, this sort of woodland-based, mystical, elegant creature. Like that's a trope, is that kind of elf. And that's great if you want to use that, or if you want to subvert that and make your elves kind of living underground and dirty and heavy smokers and whatever it is, like, sure, you can do that as long as you understand that your reader, when you hear the word elf, they're going to expect like the Tolkien elf. So if you're going to mix that up, you better do it for a good reason. And that should probably be an integral part of your story, you know. So you need to understand what people are expecting. That's the key. Like here's an example from a popular culture. Remember from the Avengers Endgame when Thor goes to this space forge and he has to talk to the
Oh
dwarves,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. Oh, I know
So
where you're going with this. Yeah.
and the dwarf, he was like 20 feet tall, but they cast an actor who is a dwarf, and it was a wonderful subversion of the trope in that, okay, in a way they're paying homage to what a dwarf is by the actor who they cast, but he's 20 feet tall, so it's hilarious and it's different. And so that was an example of, okay, we are tipping our hat to the trope, but we're also turning it on its head. So very, very clever use of it there with Thor.
That's a really I as you're going, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that part, but I love that. I love that part because of the subversion of what a dwarf is and how it's traditionally used in media. And I think that's and I want to point out you don't have to subvert a trope to be
Nope.
different at all. You can, within the standards of any trope, even just using unique characters or putting them in a very different, unusual setting, or the plot itself having a lot of unique elements, you can keep the hallmarks of that trope without subverting it and still create a very different book that hasn't been done before. The subversion is not required to break a trope and stand out.
No, if you like reading a particular genre and you love the way people write it and you want to write more of the same, great. Lean into it and do it. If you want to write a classic series of romance novels that follow each trope in turn and you give the reader exactly what they want, they will love it. And you will love it because that's what you want to do. I remember I was ghostwriting epic fantasy with an author, and he really wanted to just keep to the traditional tropes. Elves are this and dwarves are this and magic works this way and so on and so on. And I, as the ghostwriter, kept wanting to subvert. Oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? And he's like, no, no, that's not what I want to do. And I wasn't doing it just to subvert the tropes. I was doing it for the character development. And I wanted to make the characters interesting and different. And he kept sort of pulling me back, going, no, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do it the way everyone expects it. I'm like, okay, we'll do it that way. But um, it's really important for you as the author to understand what it is you want to do. Like, do you want to give everybody what they want and expect because you love that? Great. Absolutely. You cannot go wrong with that. Or if you want to go, nah, this is tired, I want to change this up. Great. You can do that too, as long as you understand what the tropes are, where they come from, why they exist. And if you're going to turn them on their head, you've got to have a good reason why. And that it can be fascinating, but you've got to do it right.
I'm actually really enjoying this conversation, Ben, because I've known you many, like a decade at least, I think, if not longer.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think I've ever heard you like talk about this. And I feel like you really care about tropes. And I didn't know this about you. You're like, and then
Yeah.
you can do this and you can subvert it and then you can do this. And then.
I mean, I guess it is fun. I learned the word when I was at university doing my lit degree, and our professor's using this word trope, and we're all like, "What a stupid word!" Then he explained what they are. Like, okay, because we're reading mythology and we're learning about the basics of the the classic characters and classic storylines from mythology, which continue to exist in storytelling today. We just dress them up differently. And I know when my first trilogy, the military sci-fi, when I first sat down to write it, I thought, man, okay, how am I going to be different? How am I going to be different? And I went through this process and realized I don't want to be different. I want to do the stuff that people expect. It's going to be different because my writing style is different and the life that I put in the characters is different. And in the end, the entire trilogy is actually rather subversive, but the tropes are not. You know, the tough, a female Marine trying to prove herself in a man's world. It's there. The cocky young pilot who is is insanely intelligent but also so stupid. It's there. The hard charging ship commander who is good at his job but is out to be an admiral one day. It's there. These are all tropes. These are all familiar characters to us. But the way I put them together and the way I mix them up, that is what makes it unique. That is what
Well,
makes the story.
the setting is
Yeah,
unique. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. And so I didn't mind using the existing tropes because I made them my own and I made it the story that I wanted to tell. Uh, um, and I think it's as an author, you need to know what are you comfortable with. Like, are you comfortable just you know going with what exists because it works and you love it and you just want to tell another story like that? Great. If you're like, nah, I want to turn this whole thing on its head. Okay, good, do that too. But you have to understand what you want to do as the author.
I think that's what it is. It really comes down to why are you doing this and what is your point? I mean, I will say for myself, I purposefully go, especially writing in historical fiction a lot. I'm really tired of the spunky heroine
Mm,
who doesn't follow the yes, you don't want somebody who's completely within the norms of society. But when I was writing, I kind of have a heroine in a man's world with Tinsmith, but she's not spunky. She's not.
mhm,
She doesn't actually want to buck the trends because she hates it. It's because she's forced, which is in
mhm,
keeping with the times, and struggles with it and doesn't like it. And the same thing when I wrote Widow, people were like, it's a quieter story, it's a slower story, in that she's not a spunky heroine, and I'm like, no, that's the point, because we don't read stories about the every woman, the one who kept within the proper confines of her role, but still was able to do something with her life and eventually find her place. And I think that that's a subversion that I in a way, I made a point of subverting those tropes because I wanted to, and that was my why. I didn't want to follow the norm in those
mhm.
genres. So I do think knowing what they are, but also why you don't want to do them, and then sticking to it is part of the writing journey, especially because whether we all realize it or not, when we are writing, we are using tropes.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, most of them come from ancient storytelling and ancient mythology, and they've just been dressed up in different ways for the modern age or for whatever period that you're writing in.
Right.
Um, so again, I think the key here is just to understand your genre that you are writing in, know what the tropes are, and then decide what to do with them. And I think you can't really go wrong with that.
There it is. See, look at us, so succinct with our wrap-ups. I'm going to call that for this show on tropes, intro to tropes, as it were. So that is our show for today. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our chats. Please leave a review, whether that's on a podcast or on YouTube. It really helps us a lot. It helps us know what you love and maybe what you want to see changed. But don't forget to also check out Ben at ben@rcoles.com, as well as on his Facebook and on Instagram.
And you can catch up with Sarah at sarahdahlman.com and on Instagram. Thanks for joining us today. Please reach out if there are any topics you'd like us to cover, and we'll see you again when we next chat all about writing.
This has been All About Writing with Ben and Sara.